I'm getting ready to watch Spy Family season 3. Actually, I'm probably gonna go ahead and read like Spy Family volume 14 again. It's been a while since I actually watched anything from the series. Not because I stopped liking it or wasn't really into it, but like I had been caught up on the manga, and so like things happened, and I decided to like let's read some other series. Let's let the series proceed a little bit, and then we'll get back to it. Like I specifically wanted to buy an iPad and then like read it on like the Shonen Jump app. That's been a thing for me for a while because my tablet is like some stupid like Amazon Android thing, and it does that really obnoxious thing where it has this very limited app selection, and so you can't use my tablet to access my app. It's dumb. Okay, I am not happy with that at all. I think it's like unbearably stupid. I don't know. Like limited Android devices should be banned. Honestly, I'm very tired of this nonsense. So I've been very anxious to get back into Spy Family for a while now, but it's just it is what it is. I'm reading other series. I specifically stopped reading manga for a long time so I could focus more on getting through more like actual books. And I've gotten through several, over the past several months. So I think I'm about ready to start reading manga again. So it got me thinking about like, Spy Family and its weird kind of legacy and history because, this is a series that is undeniably super popular. This is a series that's going to raise the birth rate. This is the game that's going to save Western society. This is the series that's like kind of, I think, the beginning of the Cultural Revolution. Like if Attack on Titan was about like how society hates us and how we need to like start like fighting back against it no matter what. Spy Family is about what happens after that, where you have to kind of like focus on what's actually important. Like we've gotten past the Cultural Revolution. Everyone's talking about the JQ, everyone's talking about women, everyone's talking about like how race is real. That's known now. It's not like a conspiracy anymore. It's all that's all known at this point. It's all out there, and it's only going to snowball from here. Spy Family, in comparison, it's more about starting families, having a happy, fulfilling life. It's about what you actually want out of your life for both men and women. Because I keep seeing like a lot of deluded millennials, especially women, making these statements that I never want kids, I never want responsibility, I want money so I can do whatever I want and I can travel and I have no responsibilities, and you just kind of have to like laugh at it, like you do have to straight up laugh at it because that is not actually what anybody wants. Like if anybody says that to you, just immediately just kind of laugh at them because it's just completely out of touch. It's completely wrong. And it's just downright delusional at this point. Like, it's very interesting how a generation has been like gaslit into thinking that somehow, having children is somehow something that's going to like ruin their lives. When in reality, it's what your entire life is building up to, right? It's like the most important thing you'll ever do. Like it doesn't really matter how accomplished you are, how educated you are, like how much you make or your career. Like nobody really cares about any of that. Like your family is more important than anything. And I think Spy Family, like the real secret to its success is that it's really genuinely emphasizing that, like from a very successful both perspectives kind of thing, where you have Twilight, who, by the way, I keep seeing people do this thing where they're like, name a single TV dad who's competent and is intelligent and is the head of the household. It's like, yeah, you're describing Spy Family, like again, this is another thing about Spy Family, which I think a lot of people haven't noticed, is that it actually subverts the whole like dopey TV dad stereotype that was, that people have been, that Hollywood's been pushing on us for decades. Spy Family is, Twilight's way more traditional. You're in her way is like super traditional. And like, they have their problems, all this baggage from all the stuff they've done, when times were hard. But now, now things are at peace, and now they're focusing on the future. Now they're, they've adopted a daughter, and, they're falling in love and all that. Like, and they're perfect for each other, right? Like, again, it's very interesting how, like, these two obviously damaged people are like coming together and like kind of setting the foundation for what's going to come after them in this way. It's very, very inspiring in that sense because you do get a sense, like, following both your Twilight and Your, that they both have this, like, kind of messed up background, these completely deranged, like, views on things and culture and society in some ways, especially Your. And, at the end of the day, they normalize, fit into society, and are just having like a very happy life together, even if they're not like willing to admit it to themselves, like it is remarkable, really, seeing how Spy Family just really, without even really trying, has kind of dismantled decades worth of like anti-nuclear family propaganda coming from the Marxists, coming from the commies, like this is like one of their most important like propaganda things, and it's falling apart because of some anime. It's remarkable in that sense, and like what's equally remarkable though is how much people are in denial about Spy Family's popularity and its enduring relevancy. Because if you take a look on Twitter or social media, like you have like complete dipshits, like, say Video Game Lover 58, these guys will come out and they'll say, Spy Family, it's not a good show. It's not serious enough. Like, yeah, because it's not an action series, it's a family comedy, like it is more grounded. It's not meant to be about the fights. It's not meant to be about like, that much of a plot progression. It's like, it's just like a family comedy series, and one that really emphasizes, the importance of family and, your place in society and all that. Like, it's a very, very, very well-crafted series that a lot of people are rejecting because it isn't action-based like Naruto, Bleach, or One Piece, And that's like the very interesting like cultural shift we've seen in the anime community since like the 2000s, is that traditionally, anime was sold to the West as like badass cartoons with like, the action elements and like, and all that. And that was true at the time, but like now we're kind of getting to the point where like, cutesy stuff is becoming more popular, and stuff like this is becoming more popular. You're seeing more and more people start to acknowledge that series like Spy Family have a lot of value. But there are a lot of people who are in denial about that. There are a lot of people who are in denial that Spy Family is a good series and are doing everything they possibly can to undermine it, doing everything they possibly can to downplay and ignore it, and are doing everything they possibly can to like cry and whine about it on the internet. And you see this a lot. Like, it is a very common thing every time a new season of Spy Family comes out, to see a lot of people coming out and saying this is like one of the most overrated shows out there right now. But in actuality, I would say it's probably one of the best. Like it's it's interesting kind of comparing this to the universally beloved Free Run, right? Because for me, I felt like Free Run was very shallow. I thought it was very basic. I thought it didn't have a lot going for it. Like it's very interesting comparing like, Spy Family to that, because with Free Run, it feels like that kind of panders to like otaku fantasies of like, oh man, she's an immortal woman who always looks young, or like that kind of thing. So much of like the Free Run a Free Run's relevancy comes from like the whole like fetishizing her thing, and the whole like kind of being red pilled on demons thing. Like those two things, which are also, admitted, like the demon thing in particular is pretty based and has done a lot for like the culture war and exposing how like minorities actually think about whites and how they treat us and stuff like that. Like that is pretty based, like in and of itself. But like Spy Family, I think is better because it goes so far beyond that, where it shows you, it does more of a leading by example kind of thing. Because, Free Run, being an otaku fantasy is like a stereotype where she is autistic, where she doesn't relate to other people, where it's entirely about like her trying to learn to be like a normal person, and like making these realizations like, I had no idea that he loved me, stuff like that. Like, like Spy Family, I think does a way better job kind of subtly building up on its themes. The idea that like Twilight and Yor are genuinely in love with each other. The idea that they have like that they're doing a great thing for the world, not through their work, but through building a relationship with each other and their child. The idea that like the idea that being like some career focused person is like the end all be all in your life, when in reality it is entirely about your relationships with other people, not necessarily like your wife or husband, but with all sorts of different people. Like again, like there's so many, like the series does a great job like emphasizing all of its unique elements and like utilizing all its characters and creating like very interesting relationships. Like for me personally, one of the things that really stuck out to me in like one of the last chapters I read was that whole bit where they go to like uh the Veterans Day parade or something, and one of Yor's coworkers lost her father in the war, and she ends up like being very rude to like the wife of one of the the guy who was the prime minister at the time, because in her eyes he sent her father to die. Like it's such a weird unexpected twist, but like if you and it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but like if you really think about it, like everything we've seen up to this point, like it makes sense. It is an organic kind of developed like genuine reaction to it, and it does a lot for like everyone involved. Like it's kind of remarkable, how this random character that I think a lot of people would have overlooked as being like some shallow like mean girl stereotype, well, the friend of a like someone who like I think would have been written off as like just some secondary character actually has that much depth to her, is actually that well written, someone who's actually that engaging, someone who like really does like exemplify like real genuine human emotion in like a relatively meaningless chapter. And that's like I think Spy Family in a lot of ways it's the best ongoing series I'm reading, I believe right now. I'll have to see if like what else is out there. Kill Blue I'm really enjoying, but I haven't read that in months. But Spy Family, I think, is like undeniably this really, really high quality series. Something that's really, really proved itself to be like this, probably the most culturally significant manga of the decade. Truth be told, this decade's Attack on Titan, honestly, and I think a lot of people just aren't happy about it because it goes so far against what so many people in the anime community want to see, because it does not sexualize the little girls. It does exemplify like monogamy and the nuclear family as a positive. It doesn't fetishize being a teenager or like some idealized like lifestyle. Like it feels a lot more real in that sense than I think a lot of other shows like it. And in a lot of ways, I've kind of been thinking of it as the anti-Simpsons, because if you think about it, a lot of the hype of like the early Simpsons years was based on this idea that it's real, bro. Like real American families are just like this, bro. And like the reality is they're super dysfunctional and like nobody acts like that. Like the entire meme that The Simpsons was real was entirely like a vehicle to push like anti-family propaganda. Matt Groening was a communist. He went to like one of the biggest Marxist art schools in the country. Like he is a complete fraud who knows nothing, who hates America, and and has this warped view of what people here are actually like. And Spy Family, interestingly enough, I find way more relatable. I find it way more desirable. I find it way more appealing. Like The Simpsons, just over time became less and less popular as more and more people started to see through it, with Lisa Simpson being like the obvious vehicle for like Groening's like insane political leanings, and like presented she was always presented as being right in any situation. And Spy Family, I think, is kind of the opposite, where it's kind of a way better show that is way more realistic in how people like look, behave, and act, and does a is going to go on to be like the way better show overall. Now, I don't think it's ever going to reach the same critical acclaim or commercial success as The Simpsons, because one of the things I've begun to realize is that like good people don't really revolve their lives around entertainment. That's what happens. Like I don't think we're ever gonna see like a really good TV show that promotes good values, because everybody who like follows good values and cares about other people, like they're not gonna spend all their time watching Netflix. That's just the reality of it. That's something we're going to see a lot more of over the decades, is that like the really good shows that come out, stuff like this, are going to get downplayed and ignored because they don't really fit in with like what the masses want, which is like more degeneracy, crazy nonsense, stuff that enables their worldview. Stuff like this, which challenges them in a sense, and like asks them to like care more about the people around them, and like have some empathy for other people, and like understand the value of family and community. Like this is something that's very anemic to leftist Twitter. This is something that this is the kind of thing that Marxists have spent their entire lives trying to dismantle. And I think as long as they exist, like something like this is not going to get the praise and attention it deserves. But right now, I think this is probably one of the best things that exists right now, and I'm very happy that Spy Family continues to be successful.